All right, my friends, you ready for this? We're going to talk file servers. Let's get started. Now, a file server is a central server instance in a computer network that enables connected clients to access the server's storage capacities. So the term encompasses both the hardware and the software needed to implement such a server. As long as they have received the corresponding authorizations, users can gain access, open, read, change, delete files and folders on a file server, just as if it was their very own hard disk. They can even upload their own files to that server, right? So a file server is a central server in a computer network that provides file systems, or at least parts of a file system, to connected clients. Right, so file servers, therefore, will offer users a central place to store their files on internal data media, which is accessible to all authorized clients. So here, the server administrator defines strict rules regarding which users have which access rights. For instance, the configuration or file authorizations of the respective file system will enable the admin to set which files can be seen and opened by a certain user or user group, and whether that data can only be viewed or added to, edited, or deleted, or not. All right? So with all these file servers connected to the internet and configured accordingly, users can not only access the files via the local network, but also will benefit from remote access. So that makes everybody happy. Now, obviously, it enables files to be accessed and saved on the file server, even when users are going mobile, right? So all modern operating systems like Windows and Linux or Mac OS can be used on a file server, although the devices available in the network need to be compatible with the operating system. But the file servers are not only used for file storage and management. You see, they're often also used as a repository for programs that have to be accessible to multiple network participants, and as a backup server. Okay, so that's all very interesting, but how does it all work? Oh, I see. You want to know the nuts and the bolts. Well, yeah, you're right. The proper hardware, the correct configuration. Hardware is the foundation for a reliable file server. Most importantly, of course, this includes a hard drive, which needs to offer sufficient space for all the files and necessary programs, as well as the respective operating system and the software that the users are using. But the server also needs enough working memory and processing power to do its job quickly and faultlessly as possible. So whether the hardware requirements can be fulfilled by just a standard PC or whether a special server setup is required primarily depends on the number of users. All right, so now we're getting into special network protocols, which are responsible for communication between file servers and clients. Now, while the SMB protocol, that's the server message block, developed by IBM, is used in local networks with Windows and macOS devices, computers with Unix-like systems, such as Linux distributions, largely work with the NFS protocol. That's the network file system. Now, to combine both protocol types in a single network, clients and file servers based on Unix Linux must be accordingly equipped with software that implements the SMB protocol in these systems. Today, with a growing number of devices designed for on-the-go use, file server capabilities still play a critical role in securing files intended for a collective group of users. See, what's changed is the multitude of on-premises appliances, software, and cloud systems that now fulfill the role of a file server. So I'll give you a few file server pros: central storage of business or network critical files, remote access to network files via an internet connection, configurable to the organization's operational needs. But of course, it comes with a few cons as well. Inherent maintenance for managing a server, limited scalability depending on server specifications, bottlenecking when overcome with requests. That is, of course, worth noting that the file server cons on the screen here apply more to the traditional perception of a file server in its physical appliance form. In the past, having a file server meant all of the responsibilities of managing a server. Today's cloud-based solutions make file serving reasonably convenient. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the main functions of a file server are to enable multiple users to access the stored files and free storage space for the file repository. So it's for this reason these servers are especially popular as a central storage place for internal company files, not just relevant for individual users. So in many cases, companies, particularly in the open source sector, will also use a file server as a download server connected to their own web offering. You see, this way they allow their customers or website visitors to download select content such as programs and drivers, updates, images, or videos with ease. The second major application of file servers is data backups. Unlike when saving and jointly managing relevant files, this specifically refers to the creation and maintenance of conventional backups of system or user files, or both, depending on the need. Storing these backup copies on a file server is both an easy and inexpensive alternative to having to plan and cover the necessary additional storage requirements on each individual client. It's the way it used to be. Good thing things change. So for many companies, using a file server is really worth considering for a range of reasons. First, there's, of course, the advantage of centrality, which ensures each authorized network participant has access to the stored files. So this makes shared working possible on these files. Conflicts between different versions of a document can be practically ruled out, as certain conditions, such as editing or deleting, are blocked for other users as soon as you open a file. Now, if users have to share the desired files on their own system instead, or transmit them using removable media, well, it'd be considerably more time-consuming and cumbersome, and it would most likely result in different file versions. Another key advantage of using file servers is that it relieves a strain on client resources. With the exception of personal documents, essentially all business files and backups can be stored on the file server, depending on how the company wishes to use the file repository. And with the right organization, comprising directories, folders, etc., users automatically have a much better overview of the entire file inventory. If the file server is configured for remote access over the internet, the files are also accessible on the go, much like an online storage service. But unlike a cloud solution, the company retains control of the files and their security at all times. This represents a clear advantage over third-party solutions. How about a summary of file server advantages? Well, you got easy organization of the entire file inventory, high degree of clarity, convenient file sharing, collaboration without version conflicts, relief of client computers, almost unlimited storage is possible, remote access via WebDAV, SFTP, or SCP is possible. Data protection and security is in your own hands. Now, we've clearly listed some of these great advantages, and that shows how valuable a file server can be. However, many companies do make the mistake of underestimating the work involved in setting up and managing such a server. Companies will often do without advanced planning. What? No. Yes. So as a result, not only is the hardware stretched to its limits after a short period of time, But also many of the benefits of a file server don't take effect. For example, if there's no clear principle for the assignment of rights, situations will likely arise in which users are unable to perform necessary actions. So problems may also occur when the directory and folder structure is unclear, or what if, egads, no folder structure exists at all? Yeah, seriously though. Anyway, if you'd like to use a file server, you should therefore consider these aspects from the very beginning, as well as a comprehensive security concept. But in the case of the latter, it is important, cannot be understated, if the file server is also accessible over the internet. In other words, remotely. So the installation and configuration of security software are just as critical as training the employees who access the file server. See, it's only when these guys have been made aware of the topics like cybersecurity and data protection can the configured protection mechanisms actually work as intended. And this is also true when it comes to storing the files. Clearly communicate where and how files should be saved on the server to prevent, chaotic data situations, and I say that in air quotes, but you know what I'm talking about, from occurring in the first place. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. Gives you a lot to think about, especially in terms of planning. But you've learned a lot. That's all about file servers. I'll see you next lesson.